Let's move on to chapter 2 of this deep piece of wisdom about natural law, in which the natural law principles are going to be outlined and then explained in short, and then I'll comment upon those explanations. So this is chapter 2, known as the 7 Hermetic Principles. That's the title of this chapter. Quote, "The principles of truth are 7. He who knows these, understandably, possesses the magic key before whose touch all the doors of the temple fly open." End quote, the Kybalion. The 7 Hermetic principles upon which the entire Hermetic philosophy is based are as follows. 1. The principle of mentalism. 2. The principle of correspondence. 3. The principle of vibration. 4. The principle of polarity. 5. The principle of rhythm. 6. The principle of cause and effect. 7. The principle of gender. These 7 principles will be discussed and explained as we proceed with these lessons. A short explanation of each, however, may as well be given at this point. So now they're going to begin the short explanations, and I'll pause after each one to comment upon each one. 1. The principle of mentalism. Quote, "The all is mind. The universe is mental." End quote. This principle embodies the truth that, quote, "all is mind," unquote. It explains that the all, which is the substantial reality underlying all the outward manifestations and appearances which we know under the terms of the material universe, the phenomena of life, matter, energy, and in short, all that is apparent to our material senses, is spirit, which in itself is unknowable and undefinable, but which may be considered and thought of as a universal, infinite, living mind. This principle embodies the truth that all is mind. It explains that the all is spirit, which in itself is unknowable and undefinable, but which may be considered and thought of as a universal, infinite, living mind. It also explains that all the phenomenal world or universe is simply a mental creation of the all, subject to the laws of created things, and that the universe as a whole and in its parts or units has its existence in the mind of the all, in which mind we live and move and have our being. Okay, I'm going to read that sentence again because it's so important. Okay? It also explains that all the phenomenal world or universe is simply a mental creation of the all, subject to the laws of created things, and that the universe as a whole and in its parts or units has its existence in the mind of the all, in which mind we live and move and have our being. This principle, by establishing the mental nature of the universe, easily explains all of the varied mental and psychic phenomena that occupy such a large portion of the public attention, and which, without such explanation, are non-understandable and defy scientific treatment. An understanding of this great Hermetic principle of mentalism enables the individual to readily grasp the laws of the mental universe and to apply the same to his well-being and advancement. The Hermetic student is enabled to apply intelligently the great mental laws instead of using them in a haphazard manner. With the master key in his possession, the student may unlock the many doors of the mental and psychic temple of knowledge and enter the same freely and intelligently. This principle explains the true nature of energy, power, and matter, and why and how all these are subordinate to the mastery of mind. This is why we've gone through so much trouble explaining mind control, folks, because all of the external manifestations are ultimately created in the mind. And if the mind is controlled, what is created will be controlled by those who have the knowledge on how to control the mind. That's why I just spent a year and a half talking about mind control. Okay? Back to the reading. As a matter of fact, let me read that sentence again because it's so important. With the master key in his possession, the student may unlock the many doors of the mental and psychic temple of knowledge and enter the same freely and intelligently. The principle of mentalism explains the true nature of energy, power, and matter, and why and how all of these are subordinate to the mastery of mind. One of the old Hermetic masters wrote long decades ago, "He who grasps the truth of the mental nature of the universe is well advanced on the path to mastery." And these words are as true today as at the time they were first written. Without this master key, mastery is impossible, and the student knocks in vain at the many doors of the temple. It's explaining there is only one being here at the highest fundamental level of creation. The all. Call it God, whatever you want to call it. We exist within this spiritual construct. And this spiritual construct gives rise to what we call matter through vibration, which we're going to get to in a few moments. We think that everything is separate. This goes to the fundamental basic worldview that we hold. Is everything completely separate from everything else, which leads to materialism, which leads to us versus them mentality, which leads to the non-understanding that as we're doing to someone else, we're doing to us, because there is no separation at the highest level. This is one being having an experience. That's why it's called a universe. One being experiencing something, a change, a great change. From versare in Latin, meaning to change. And yeah, I understand it means to turn, but that doesn't mean like physical turning. It means turning into something else, changing, like the seasons turn. One change, the universe, the all, a spiritual construct that exists in mind. This is the mind of God. Call it whatever you want. Again, that force, what that force is, you're not going to know as a monad, a individual unit of consciousness. The all knows that. What it actually is. That's what it's doing. It's gaining more experience of what it actually is. That's why it's going through this one change called the universe. It's acquiring more knowledge of itself, just as that's what our goal should be. If we want to reflect the divine, we need to acquire more knowledge of ourselves, because we're going so far away from the source, the actual true divine mind. We're descending deeper and deeper into materialism, barbarism, and real chaos as a people, as a species, because we think we know it all, because we know so many things that we think we know about science. We have all this knowledge, quote unquote, and very little wisdom. Meaning how to actually apply that knowledge to create something that we really want to create for ourselves, that truly serves us and doesn't act as a detriment to our evolutionary progress in consciousness. Because consciousness is often left out of this equation altogether. Oh, it's all about more knowledge of the physical, but never more knowledge of the mental realm, of the psychological realm, of the emotional realm. No, we want to run away from that. We don't want to really look at that in ourselves. And we certainly don't want to understand that we're always all connected to that infinite source in a one-to-one connection. that doesn't require priests or intercessors or intermediaries of any kind. No, because we want to look at, we want something to come and rescue us and save us from ourselves. Not to actually do any real work in transforming our own consciousness on our own to get up to a higher level of understanding. God forbid that. Because that's called real work. That's called really looking at oneself. And humanity wants nothing to do with that as a species. They want license. They want license to ignore that work, which is license to just completely abdicate personal responsibility. And until we consciously decide to change that, don't expect the external reality to change, because it's not changing a bit until we change the internal world of mind. The general principles of natural law, specifically, we've been discussing the principle of mentalism, that the all is mind. The universe is ultimately a mental construct of spirit. And that mind, that universal living mind, is simply experiencing itself through this construct. The deep understanding of this principle can go a long way toward breaking down a calcified materialist worldview if it is deeply, deeply contemplated upon. Not just reading words. It's what the warning in the beginning of the book is about. If you're not willing to really do work with this material to integrate it, it's all just words. Okay? That's why this principle is so important, first and foremost. Secondarily, it is important because we need to understand that we, through what we are taking into our minds and then acting upon, are creating the circumstances of our experience here. And that's great news. Nothing external is doing this to us. We are doing this to us. It's our choice. We want this to change. We have to get enough people to the point of knowledge and understanding to say, I do know how this works, how these principles work. I do know that this is our own creation and that we can make it into whatever we want, and then do that. That's called wisdom, acting upon what you already know and understand. And if you're, at the point where, this means that nothing can be known and there is no such thing as knowledge, again, good luck with that solipsism, because that's the biggest lie and it's the biggest path to mind control. And I already explained to you through the religion of the dominators, Satanism and dark Luciferianism, this is actually one of their sins and one of the things that they want to get you to accept above all else, that nothing can be known. Well, the people who don't know anything will never say no to anything. Think about that. Okay, these words don't sound the same for no reason. For you to actually use the word no, you need to know something. Not think it or believe it or have heard about it somewhere. You need to know it in your being, in the core of your being, that it's truth. And there is such a thing as truth, and it does exist, and it is knowable, and it can be integrated and be made a part of us. We are a part of it. We're not ever really separate from it. It's just we think we are. Just like we think we're a separate thing in creation. When we're all integrated in it, we live in it. Not there's a creator and a creation. It's all one thing. How could the creator be someplace else besides within the creation? That would mean he's not it. That force is not someplace. He, she, it. It doesn't exist someplace, which wouldn't be possible. And people even make the argument, oh, it's possible. God can do anything. It's all. It's the all. Everything, that means. Well, the one thing it can't do is get outside of the all, because it is the all. This is simple logic can tell you this, even if you're not thinking about it from a right brain perspective. You want it from a left brain perspective, excuse me, but you want to see it from a right brain perspective? Take a huge hit of DMT. You'll see it from the right brain perspective real fast, how this is all one thing and how you're in it, not a separate part of it. You know, people should approach that with reverence as well, but they don't think it's a toy. We'll get to that as one of our, practical methodologies for getting outside of a deeply imbalanced consciousness, entheogens in a very conscious context, much later in our solutions. That's one of the later solutions in the 10 solutions that I generally propose. This outline in natural law is the master solution. It encompasses all of the other ones, because if you don't enact the other grassroots solutions in a deep understanding of natural law, they're all in vain. We're going to talk about methodologies for knowing things, which have been hidden as well, which is the trivium method. And again, the trivium and quadrivium together form 7. There's that mystical number again, just like 7 principles of creation, 7 chakras, 7 days of creation, etc. There's a reason these numbers exist. You have your methods, and then you have your quantifying means. The trivium and the quadrivium. So let's go back to looking at the principles outlined in the Kybalion. We talked about the importance of the principle of mentalism, which is where we left off last week. Let's look at the principle of correspondence now, which is principle number 2. And I'm going to go back to the reading in the Kybalion now. Here we go. Quote, as above, so below. As below, so above. End quote. This principle embodies the truth that there is always a correspondence between the laws and phenomena of the various planes of being and life. The old Hermetic axiom ran in these words, quote, as above, so below. As below, so above, end quote. And the grasping of this principle gives one the means of solving many a dark paradox and hidden secret of nature. There are planes beyond our knowing, but when we apply the principle of correspondence to them, we are able to understand much that would otherwise be unknowable to us. This principle is of universal application and manifestation on the various planes of the material, mental, and spiritual universe. It is a universal law. The ancient Hermeticists considered this principle as one of the most important mental instruments by which man was able to pry aside the obstacles which hid from view the unknown. Its use even tore aside the veil of Isis to the extent that a glimpse of the face of the goddess might be caught, just as a knowledge of the principles of geometry enables man to measure distant suns and their movements while seated in his observatory, so a knowledge of the principle of correspondence enables man to reason intelligently from the known to the unknown. Studying the monad, he understands the archangel. Think about it, folks. The more we understand about the internal world, the more we will understand about why what has been created in the external world is the way that it is. The universe is self-similar across all scales. It is consistent with itself across all scales and planes of being. And why would it be otherwise? Nature exists in perfect order. Only the product of disease would create the level of imbalance and disorder that we have created here on this planet. And this is what the fall of man is all about. Coming out of harmony with the natural law principles and the true understanding of mind and all, and then through fear, abandoning that understanding, abandoning those principles. And through that fear, creating chaos here. part of getting back to a truly ordered society involves the understanding that that which is within is like to that which is without. This is another way of stating the principle of correspondence, meaning we are creating the external manifestation through how we live, what we believe and think, and then acting upon the what's already in our mental and psychological makeup, then acting upon that in the physical reality in which we operate. It can be really said very simply. I said this once to someone who responded. I'll tell you what his response was after I tell you what I said to him. This is somebody who I was trying to explain to him that we are creating the reality all around us, that no one else is doing this to us, and that as we think and feel internally and then act, that's the kind of world we're going to get. It's real simple. We've already gotten through 2 of them. Perhaps I'll endeavor in this last segment to get through the third, and then we'll pick it up next week with principles 4 through 7. But I want to make a statement about principle number 2, 1 and 2 really, the principle of mentalism and correspondence, which we've covered so far. How great does it feel to know that our reality is simply a construct in which, if we only endeavor to understand the laws which have basically made that construct and that we exist within, we can have whatever we want, whatever we wish to have. We can make of this place whatever the most wildest imaginings of our mind can endeavor to envision. That is actually phenomenal news. We can make a paradise of this place. Not in ignorance, though. Certainly not in ignorance of ourselves and the laws of nature. Not going to happen. But how great is it to know that that's how this place is constructed? That it's not going to say no to us no matter what we want to create. Now, conversely, how sad is it to realize this is what we've made with what we've been given. Because we have rejected our responsibilities as stewards of this planet and as stewards of each other, as our own caretakers. And we want somebody else to come in and take care of us. We don't want to take care. We don't want to have care in our hands and actually have to use that in a responsible way. We want to give it to someone else. See, because care is that inner child. That's why they cremate care at Bohemian Grove as the child. They want people to continue to sacrifice their personal responsibility. They don't want you to have care, to take care. They want to kill care. And unfortunately, the rejection of these principles exactly represents that. Murdering the child within us. Murdering true care. Because that's the ultimate generative principle that binds all of the other principles of natural law. They are all encompassed within the generative principle. That's why when you see the seed of life pattern, or what is known as the Genesis pattern, okay, there are 7 circles within it, and then it is contained within the all-encompassing one circle, the 8th circle. Again, 8 representing infinity, or something that is hermetically sealed. That's the generative principle, the principle of creation. All of these laws, all of these principles have to do with how we are creating our reality. That's what this entire show is all about. It's what I said on day 1, what this show would be about. Explaining the causal principles, the causal factors that underlie why we're experiencing what we're experiencing. Or in other words, how we're creating exactly what we're getting. It's good news, folks. Regarding the principle of correspondence, let's see if I can remember this quote from the New Testament. Jesus is, or maybe it's not, I don't think it's from the New Testament, it's from one of the Gnostic Gospels, I believe. I think it's from the Gospel of Thomas. He says, if you bring forth that which is within you, that which is within you will save you. But if you do not bring forth that which is within you, that which you do not bring forth will destroy you. This is a perfect reflection of the principle of correspondence. That which is within is like to that which is without. If we go within, understand that we're the ones creating this situation, we can rearrange it and make of it whatever we want. A paradise for ourselves if we choose. Yet people want to stay calcified in this old way of seeing the world, seeing each other, and being in this reality, and therefore continue to create suffering for themselves. And that's the definition of insanity. And I, quite frankly, don't really understand it, and I'm quite frankly tired of it. Of being subject to these people's ignorance, because that's what it is. The ignorant of this world are holding hostage the people that do understand these principles of creation. This is a hostage situation, folks. Consciousness is trying to evolve here, and it's being held back against its will, against its wishes. And that's wrong. That's wrong. That's called taking something that you're not allowed to take. The freedom of a being, of a consciousness to move forward and not have to deal with the crap that we've created here as a species. All because we don't want personal responsibility. That's why religion exists, ladies and gentlemen. People want to still put things in a box and say, oh, if this person's reading something from this tradition, that makes it automatically evil, and distrust, I don't want to trust that person, or this is, people shouldn't be listening to this. Never actually wanting to hear any of the wisdom that's contained in it about why the world is the way that it is. So they can step back and say, oh, that's not my problem. That's not my doing. That's exactly your doing. Exactly. The people that don't want to understand how these principles work are the people who are making this world the way it is. Get over it. That's how it works, folks. So let's look at principle number 3, and then we'll wrap it up there if we get through it, and we'll continue with the next 4 next week. Principle number 3 from the Kybalion is known as the principle of vibration. Nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. This principle embodies the truth that everything is in motion. Everything vibrates. Nothing is at rest. Facts which modern science endorses and which each new scientific discovery tends to verify. And yet, this Hermetic principle was enunciated thousands of years ago by the masters of ancient Egypt. This principle explains that the differences between different manifestations of matter, energy, mind, and even spirit result largely from varying rates of vibration. From the all, which is pure spirit, down to the grossest form of matter, all is in vibration. The higher the vibration, the higher the position in the scale. The vibration of spirit is at such an infinite rate of intensity and rapidity that it is practically at rest, just as a rapidly moving wheel seems to be motionless. And at the other side, and at the other end of the scale, there are gross forms of matter whose vibration are so low as to seem at rest. Between these poles, there are millions upon millions of varying degrees of vibration. From corpuscle and electron, atom and molecule, to worlds and universes, everything is in vibratory motion. This is also true on the planes of energy and force, which are but varying degrees of vibration, and also on the mental planes, whose states depend upon vibrations, and even onto the spiritual planes. An understanding of this principle with the appropriate formulas enables Hermetic students to control their own mental vibrations as well as those of others. The masters also study this principle to the conquering of natural phenomena in various ways. He who understands the principle of vibration has grasped the scepter of power, says one of the old writers. If you understand this